Mackenzie Johnston with Tri-State Livestock News, bringing you discussions concerning fair cattle markets. Today we have the opportunity to chat with Fred Berger of Mandan, North Dakota. He is a cattle feeder up there and also a livestock broker. So to start with, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and your background within the cattle industry?
I've been kind of heavily into the cattle industry since 1985. Right now, I currently operate 4 feedlots, smaller feedlots, 5,000, 6,000 head lots, and then I run about 10,000 cattle of my own.
What do you think are the major issues standing in the way of fair cattle markets?
One of the major issues is the CME that we got cattle futures that are a really good tool for hedging, but they got the limits too high. It makes your margins too high. It makes it tougher for guys to do hedging on there. So they end up doing packer contracting more, probably because of that. That's one thing. The limits are too high on the futures contracts, and they don't need to be that high because they put them up there when the feeder futures got to $2.40 a hundred. Fat futures got to $1.70. They raised them up. Feeders dropped $100 from there, and the fat drums dropped $60 to $70. They don't need them big margins anymore. That's hurting their cattle. Not only that, when the algorithm funds get in play, they can swing it too much further. If you'd have the fat futures at $2 a hundred, or $2, the limits on the fat futures at $2, the feeder futures at $3, it'll still be a little unstable, but it'll be a lot more stable market. And that's number one. Number two is the big thing they need is a cash settlement in the fat futures. The day we sold fats for $1.15 one day, and the next day the fat futures were down at 80 some bucks, and it just ripped them. Them cattle just went from $1.90 in the meat to $1.50 like bang. That wouldn't happen if you had a cash settlement, because nobody had been gutsy enough to push your fat cattle to 85 cents so fast when your cash is up there. Just like when the packers pushed down June fats the day they went off to 91 bucks or 92 or something, and fats were selling for 98 to a buck. That contract should have went off at 98 cents or $1, around the 98-cent area. You put these guys in panic, you just create more selling. And another thing, if they did have cash settlements in the fat cattle market, like they do in the feeders, you wouldn't need to go to the packer to sign a packer contract. Packers contract cattle, they'll say we'll give you $1 under the board or for this month, or 50 cents under for this month. You could just do it on the board. You wouldn't need them, because the board would stay right with the cash. And then the packers always want to have captive supply. Then if the packers want a captive supply, they wouldn't come and say, I'll give you $1 under or 50 under the December board. They'd say, I'll give you $4 or $5 over just to get cattle bought. Then you're making money. You got a handle on them, see? Right now, everything's set up for these packers to really overhaul the guy, Our cattle market, when we were getting $1.50 or $1.60 in the meat for fats, and they were selling the boxes for $4.50, that could never happen in a situation if you did them two things. That could never happen.
How do we fix these issues?
You got to get enough people behind it to force NCB or somebody to make that CME change them contracts to cash like they did in the feeders. Cash settlement on the fat contracts.
This spring, did you have a lot of cattle that needed to be slaughtered, or have any cattle that needed to go to slaughter, but you couldn't get them moved because you couldn't get a bid?
Well, I got them through, but they more or less stole them from me, Yeah, it was not a very good bid, It was when you get $1.50 in the meat and they're selling the boxes for $4 or $4, or even if they're selling the boxes for $2, they're still stealing your cattle. It's a crime. It's a complete crime. If you or me go down to the grocery store and steal a loaf of bread, they'd throw us behind bars,
What are your thoughts on this backlog of cattle that the industry is facing?
The backlog is about done. Every day I watch the box beef movement, and, we were like running about 10% selects. Now we're down to about 35% selects. So that means that there's no backlog no more in my books. And it's just like this. I've been in this business for years. Every time they say there's a wall of cattle coming, it never shows up. Every time they say there's going to be a hole in the market out there, that hole never shows up either.
What's your outlook for the market for the next 30 to 60 days?
Well, I think it'll be grind higher, a little higher, maybe not a lot, but it could grind a lot higher. But I think by the time we get into October, November, we're going to see it quite higher. I just think we're going to have a little tighter supply of protein in first quarter next year. They call these the futures, they don't call them the Today Show, so they will start going up ahead of time. Well, as soon as we get the good fund participation again in there, then them packers and algorithms can't run that market like that because the funds just buy it back up. And they only ride them markets when the funds are out of there. Then they do damage to us, The index funds still got commodity funds, but when the index funds move in there, they really help people out,
Do you think we've done permanent damage to the beef demand since we've gouged our consumers?
Well, it's not very good. I don't know. It's never permanent, but it's going to be a long time before we get it back because right now the packers are really hitting the retailers hard, and retailers are hitting the people hard, which was the retailers' fault for a while. But now the packers are selling the meat for less than half of what they're selling at the retailers before, and the prices haven't come down in the store much. So now the retailers they don't want to try to drop the prices yet to hurt beef demand. They need to back this hamburger up to $4 a pound again, and other cuts up. They just don't think ahead. They just want that money right now.
Do you think our industry is in danger of vertical integration if we don't get some kind of changes made within our cattle markets?
In a slight way, the big feed, they'll keep killing people off, and they'll force big feedlots to build more pens. And a lot of them big feedlots got buddy deals with the packers, So if they get that done, like the fat cattle, which it could happen, not saying it will, but there's a chance it could happen. Less chance than in the hogs because it takes longer to make calves, But if they get vertical integrated, it'll be just in the feedlot pretty much space. But when you take a lot of farmers quit feeding, or you get less people bidding on your cattle, you got less price discovery. Pretty soon they're out there buying your feeders a lot cheaper too, And all stems down to, a lot of these small guys can't protect themselves good enough. They just can't get until they ride the market open-ended, If there'd have been cash settlement and smaller margins, they'd have never took that cattle market from $1.30 to 80 cents. It probably got it in so fast. It probably got it down to $1, and it took a little longer to do it. They just sold cattle high for 3-4 more weeks before they just, they could have helped. And then they wouldn't have sold them cheap as long either. See, the way this stuff, the market set up, they can move this market so fast, so far that it gives them 3-4 weeks. They could just rob cattle, and if they'd have it the other way, it would grind lower more. They wouldn't be able to do that. Guess who did the cost? The producers. Just really hurts some producers.
Do you think there is any chance that our cattle organizations, such as NCBA, U.S. Cattlemen, RCAF, can get on the same page and fight for a similar goal?
You'd think so. They're all after the same thing, I guess, unless, the NCBA, it just seems like every time they go somewhere and implement something new, it's always benefits the packer more than the producer. And that's a problem. I see them talking about it. I never see them implement anything that's better for the producer than the packer.